There are some videos within this presentation which are already captioned, so you can turn your own closed captions off while these are playing. Halfway through the session, there will be a short pause to allow our interpreters and lip speakers to change over. I am very pleased to introduce Christopher Patno, Head of Accessibility and Disability Inclusion for EMEA at Google. Christopher will be taking questions after the presentation, so feel free to type your questions into the Q&A panel to the right. Thanks.
I guess it's my turn now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me join you. I guess, as introduced, my name is Christopher. I lead accessibility and disability inclusion for Google for EMEA. What this means is Europe, Middle East, and Africa. My responsibility is to try to understand the needs of people with disabilities across the region, from Helsinki to Cape Town, from Riyadh to Dublin, and bring it all inside to Google so we can understand what's working, what's not working, and how we can make our products, platforms, and services better in partnership with the community, whether you're deaf, blind, deafblind, cognitive impairments, mobility impairments. We try to take a holistic view of what disability means as we do our work. And what I'd like to share with you now are some thoughts on how we think about inclusion, how we think about innovating in conjunction, in partnership with the community. So with that, let's get started. And with all great stories, we start with heartbreak and depression. And my personal story is one of a failed musician. I studied music in university and I wanted to be an opera singer. But I realized in my mid-20s, I was making a lot more money waiting on tables than I was singing, and thought it probably meant something, so I fell into computers. I was fortunate enough to be raised in Cupertino, California, home of Apple computers, and I found myself there for 10 years. I worked on the first iPod, I worked on the first iTunes, the G4 towers, the G5 towers, Final Cut Studio. I spent a couple of years at Sony Ericsson making cell phones. I even spent a year at Disney Mobile making mobile games. But when Google calls, you pick up the phone. So I joined Google and I've been here now for 11 years. But it was here at Google where I learned about accessibility. I was a lead technical program manager at Google Play Music, and we had a test engineer come into our meeting. She turned on voiceover and I heard button, 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 button. I asked, what's that? And she said, this is Google Play Music for someone who's blind. I said, well, that's stupid. How do they use it? And she said, they don't. That's why I'm here. So that was my introduction to accessibility. That was my introduction to disability inclusion. For the previous 18 years, it was never a factor of what I was doing. It wasn't a part of my job. But from that moment on, I couldn't ignore it. So within a couple of months, I volunteered to take on accessibility for the Google Play suite of products, and I hired that program manager to join me, to teach me what I needed to know. And then a couple of years later, I went and did virtual reality and augmented reality, but I don't talk about that anymore. But then I joined the Central Accessibility team, and I did that for several years. And in the middle of COVID, I came to England because the weather here is so lovely, and I really appreciated some rain. And this is where I started doing the work here now, in conjunction with Europe, Middle East, and Africa. But why does Google do accessibility? I get this question a lot. And I'm fortunate enough to say it's actually part of our mission statement. It's to make the world's information universally accessible and useful. And that universally accessible is the important part, because if we didn't include people with disabilities in our work, we wouldn't be fulfilling our mission. So we are not perfect, but we have a culture where this is an important part of what we do. And we take this mission seriously, not just in terms of, say, Google Mail or YouTube, but also Google Maps. We can tell you in the through Google Maps where hearing loops are. We can tell you if there are steps that you have to take to get into a pub. So we can tell you things about the real world that's relevant to people with disabilities, just as well as we can make sure that you can see videos with captions and audio descriptions. Because this work impacts everyone. Now, I know I'm speaking to the choir here, but this is a message that people often don't realize is there's 1.3 million of us who have disabilities, and these are self-identified disabilities. And for those of us in this group, these technologies like captions can be profoundly life-changing. But then there are those of us who may not identify with having a disability, or because they didn't know about it, they thought I just had some problems here, or maybe there's stigma, like in some places in Africa, your family is told you have a curse if someone in the family has a disability. So there's many reasons why people may not identify with having a disability. And then you expand this even farther to the friends and families of people with disabilities. Say, for example, you have a child in your family who has a wheelchair. You're not going to go to a restaurant where you have a lot of steps to get into. It's not appropriate. So you wouldn't be part of that. You wouldn't go to these kinds of places because it doesn't meet the needs of your family. And then finally, every one of us is going to have some situation, whether we are lucky enough to get old or whether we have a permanent disability, a situational or temporary disability, everything from a broken arm to a sunny day. It's actually a little sunny here in London right now, where the contrast is bad and you can't read what's on the screen. So as we develop our products, and this isn't just Google, but as anyone builds products, if you do it thoughtfully, you can meet the needs of people no matter who you are, where you are, or when you are. So when it comes to building inclusively, there's actually a secret I want to share. When you're just getting started, it's not part of your DNA. It's not how you do things. So you have to make a choice. And if you have to make a choice, you're excluding something for the intention of being inclusive. There's always going to be constraints in the project. There's always going to be a need to focus. So it sounds almost counterintuitive, but you have to be a little exclusive to be inclusive until you get to the point where it becomes just a matter of how you do your work. And so the message I like to share is if you have to do it, get started. If you have to make a choice, choose to be inclusive. Keep it above the line so it's always something that you can get better and better and better at. So coming back to brass taxes, what are the ways people actually start the work in terms of being inclusive? What are the key methods of this? One is leverage your strengths. Do what you're good at. At Google, this is AI. And for me, the way I think about this is as a failed musician, but as a musician nonetheless, I think of the jazz piano player as one of the sort of the experts in their instrument. They can improvise almost anything. And if you want to start working with someone who has a disability or someone who has experience you don't understand, you don't want to be just learning how to play chopsticks and be able to help someone. You want to be able to use the breadth of your experience and breadth of your talent to meet those needs and doing it together. So leverage your strengths, do what you're good at. 2, nothing about us without us. This is the most important thing, because if you want you want to develop with and for someone, never just for someone. You can't understand what it's like in someone else's shoes, so you have to ask them. You have to ask them what's the problem. You have to ask them what the solutions can be, and you have to work together to make sure that what you thought was the right solution actually meets the needs, actually meets the goals. So this partnership of nothing about us without us is critically important. 3, start with one. You want to start, because there's so many people in there, 1.3 billion is a large number. You want to, if that seems scary, you want to start with one. You can start with one person. You can start with one feature. You can start with fixing one bug. The important thing is that you just get started, because you're never going to be done. There's no such thing as anything being perfectly accessible. If they say it is, they're probably lying and trying to sell you something. Because accessibility really is about a process. It's about making progress. It's about making things better and better and better over time. 10% better, and then 10% better, and then 10% better again is significantly more helpful and more impactful than waiting for something to be 30% better, whatever that means. So it's really important that you just get started. So what I want to do is I want to share with you some ideas and an example, a story of how we do this at Google, specifically around captions. So a brief history of captions at Google. In 2009, in YouTube, we had our first experiment when it comes to automatic captioning. It wasn't great, but we learned the message that something that's not great is a whole lot better than nothing that's perfect. So we continued to invest, we continued to develop, we continued to focus on this. And today we're at a point now where we have 14 languages where you could get captions for free out of YouTube. We then took this stack, this technical stack from YouTube and moved it to Google Meet. So now you could have real-time, high-quality captions in a meeting. And we started off with English in 2019, but today we have 15 different languages now, with 7 more coming. So soon we're going to have about 22 different languages, allowing people to participate in a way they couldn't be otherwise. Whether you have a disability, whether you're learning the language and you're not fluent yet, the many reasons why captions are so important. And then when we realized we have these captions, we could also provide a transcription for the meeting. So now we also have automatic transcriptions for the meetings. But what's exciting in this new generation of large language models, this generative AI work that's happening, you're hearing a lot about today, we actually provide an opportunity for people to speak to each other through language in different languages. So someone who speaks French could be having a conversation with someone who speaks Mandarin Chinese. They may not speak the other person's language, but because of the captions, it makes up the difference. So the French person sees French, even though the Chinese person is speaking Chinese. And the Chinese person is speaking Chinese, but the French person is reading French. It's almost like Douglas Adams's Babelfish. And we're just getting started. But I want to go into mobile because I think this is where the technology is most impactful. There's a really excellent application on Android called Live Transcribe. And it's an application that provides over 80 different languages in terms of real-time transcription. And if you can't speak or choose not to speak or have a hard time being understood, you can type your questions and your responses right there in real time. So you can have a real conversation with someone right there without a caption or without an interpreter, without a lip speaker. You have the opportunity to communicate with someone one-on-one on your own time. But because situational awareness is also a problem, we've added some more AI uses in the phone. So if you tell us what your name is, we can tell you when someone's calling your name. Or we can tell you when sound events are happening in your world. Let's say someone's laughing, or there's a knocking on the door or an alarm. We can tell you when these things are happening. In fact, recently, we added the ability for you to let us know what your oven sounds like, for example, or your dishwasher or your washing machine. And because of that, we can tell you when it sounds like your oven is going off so you don't burn your dinner. These features were developed in conjunction with the community, starting off with languages and then adding sound and then adding your sound. It makes such a difference. And it was invented by these two people here. Dimitri's on the left, Chet is on the right. I'd like to show you a little video that sort of explains how this came together.
I'm set. Yeah. Ready?
I completely lost hearing when I was 1 year old. Technology provides tremendous opportunities to help people with disabilities. I'm a research scientist at Google, and I'm developing speech recognition in technology. Speech recognition accuracy finally became so good that I could fulfill my dream for whole life, to use speech recognition to communicate with people. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, and how are you?
I'm doing good. What can I get you today?
I would like tea. Like Transcribe is an application that runs in Android. It provides transcription of speech for deaf and hard of hearing in real time.
Dimitri worked with the speech team to develop that technology, and Google has made strides in this in the past couple years, but the app itself is what I've been working on.
So here is an example of many of these features, these ways of thinking about in one. You start with one, which is Dimitri. Nothing about us without us. It's Dimitri again. Do what you're good at. Dimitri and Chet. What you may not know is Dimitri is a Russian-born research scientist who's deaf. So he has a very difficult time communicating in a language that isn't his. Because of his deafness, he's learned to read lips, but it is always harder. And with an application like this, it makes it much easier for him to get involved in many kind of situations. It's exciting how these technologies can really help make people more successful in their work and in their lives.
I'm set.
So then we continued to evolve the technology. We were so pleased with how this is going. We actually took this model that lived in the cloud and shrunk it to something that sits on your phone. So in many languages, you could actually have the same feature be significantly faster because it doesn't have the internet connection. The latency is very, very low. And when you have this model that sits on your phone, we can now actually start providing captions for other things in your world. So for example, if you are at a website that doesn't provide captions of the videos, if you're on a social news site, we can provide captions for you if it's a language that we support. Or if someone sends you an audio note, we can provide you caption for that. Or if someone sends you a video of a birthday party or someone eating a donut, we can provide captions for that too. So this allows you to participate in the world that wasn't necessarily designed for you in mind. And then we took this sort of one step farther and realized it'd be really cool if this worked on the telephone, so you could actually take phone calls. So we did.
I hesitated for a few seconds, and I realized the enormity of it, what it really meant. I'm 55 years old, and for the first time, I was able to call my son.
This is Matthew. He likes to swim in cold water.
After a swim, you feel alive.
Like really, really cold water.
I also swam across the English Channel.
But that's another story. Matthew is deaf.
People think if I got a hearing aid on, I could hear everything. And that's not true. I lip read most of the time. I have two boys, and they're both a very important part of my life.
This is Matthew's youngest son.
Hi, I'm Harry.
He lives in Hong Kong and plays rugby.
I always want to keep in touch with him. Before, I need to communicate with him through Zoom or WhatsApp. I would try and lip read him, but it's really hard because it's not 3D, it's a flat screen. When I got the Google Picture phone, I could live capture Peter. Harry was the first person I phoned. It was incredible. And we were talking for about half an hour. All of a sudden, he said,
Dad, do you realise this is the first time we've talked from the phone?
I was speechless for 3-4 seconds, and it realised what it really meant. I'm 55 years old, and for the first time in my life, I was able to call my son.
So the technology now evolved from providing captions in the real world to digital captions, and now we can help bring families together from Singapore into London. So the technology continues to evolve because of the partnerships with the community to make it better and better over time.
I hesitate.
So we took this one step farther. We thought, okay, we can now provide captions for anything that's spoken. But we've always had the ability to take text and speak it aloud. We have screen readers, for example. So we sort of merged these together, and now we have what's called live caption for calls, which means you can read the captions of of what's being spoken, but then you can type your response and click send, and we'll generate a voice for you. So now, whether you're verbal or nonverbal, deaf or hearing, you can use the phone just like anybody else. And one of the interesting things we learned is this feature was designed specifically with deaf people in mind. And what we learned is the more people heard about it, the more uses it became, the more useful it became. For example, we started working with the M&D Association, and someone there said, well, I normally have to work with a respeaker, and this feature allows me not to have to go through a respeaker, so I can have private conversations. And that really touched me, that this is the technology evolving itself, and the more we do this, the more people we work with, the broader we can make the experience. The more people's lives we can make better. And then the technology itself continues to evolve. So what we have here is a video, or a screenshot from a video of a prototype technology that we have using augmented reality, where instead of having captions on your phone that you would look at, we could actually put them in the screen right in front of your face. So you can be reading captions and looking at someone right in the eyes. And of course, we also can connect our Google Translate here. So here's another way where you can be speaking different languages, looking at each other and understanding what the other person is trying to say.
Interpreter change.
So I wanted to recap the points of the way you should think about inclusion when designing technology. One, want to leverage your strengths. Do what you're good at. Think like the jazz pianist. Two, nothing about us without us. We always want to design with and for the community, never just for the community. Three, start with one. Start with one person. Start with one feature. Start with fixing one bug. But the most important thing is that you just get started, because if you don't start, you're never going to develop the skills and relationship with the communities to make your products better. Because this is really a matter of progress. So there's nothing that is ever going to be perfectly accessible. Don't make perfection the goal. Make it 10% better, 10% better, 10% better. Because if you don't just get started, it's never going to happen. And when you do this, magical things can happen.
A look can say a lot. A look can be honest and true. A look can speak for you. Say what's on your mind or in your heart. A look can say what's best unsaid and find the right words without having to say a word. A look.
It's great to see you.
Can say a lot.
How are you?
And that's what we do. That's what we do. We try to create technology that's built to help. Thank you. I think we're going to be doing some Q&A.
We are. Thank you so much, Christopher. That was absolutely fascinating. So thank you. We have had loads of questions come in. Are you ready? It just goes to show how great that talk was. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Katie says we have to rely on individual websites to translate their information into BSL, using Signly, for example. Are Google able to enable this? Are Google able to enable this to happen more easily for greater access to information?
So right now, automatic interpretation isn't something that exists well. It is possible to take some text and then have to work with another company to either hire an interpreter or have an avatar to generate it. But the technology isn't there to take text and generate sign language, whether it's ASL, BSL, IS. It's just not there yet. We're getting closer and closer. Mm-hmm. In the US, we recently announced a finger spelling competition in Kaggle, and it's making some really good progress. We've also just recently announced a grant with a spin out from University of Surrey with Synapse, and they're trying to build technology for sign interpretation. So we're getting closer and closer, but it's not ready there yet. Let's check here in a couple of years.
We'll see you then. That kind of ties in with another question that I've had in. So I love that Google build their products inclusively from the ground up. What's a typical timeline from inception of idea to bringing it to your device?
It's really different from product to product. I can't say there's any one way, but I can give you an example of something that I'm quite proud of. Just yesterday, Google announced our new version of the Pixel phone and Pixel Watch. And that in itself is neat, but there's a feature in there designed originally out of the Accessibility Discovery Center. So what this is, it's a center that I've built in our King's Cross office. And as we were designing it, we had conversations with RNIB, Robin Spink specifically at RNIB, and he said, Google should have a magnifier. You guys should really do this. I think you'd be brilliant. And I thought he was right. And this happens mid-year last year. Well, we announced it yesterday. It's going on the Play Store over the next couple of days. So here is something that was conceived of by the community. We worked with Robin to get use cases of close use cases, distance use cases. We did research at the ADC here in London. We also partnered with NFB in the US, and we created this product that is the first generation of the product. So it doesn't have everything that I wanted, but again, it's progress, not perfection. This is something I'm quite proud of. It came out of the work that we've done here in London at the ADC, and I can't wait to see where it goes next.
Fab, thank you. Somebody else has asked, do we have access to this session after today because they are loving this? So yes, just to confirm that our sessions are recorded and will be accessible. Katie has asked, is live subtitles for phone calls available on all phones?
It's not on all phones. Live captions for the calls is on all Pixels. It's on, I think it's also being released on several on Samsung phones and some of the other OEMs and in multiple languages. So Pixels, you're guaranteed to get it. But if you go to Samsung phones, you're very likely to get it. If you go to the Oppos and some of these other brands, there's less and less guarantee. But the Pixel phones are excellent phones. They're of a good cost, and it's pure Google. It's what I use. But I also acknowledge I'm biased.
Of course. Somebody else, Claire, has said, Christopher, thank you. What amazing and truly life-changing work. Very true.
It makes me so happy. So thank you.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Jenny says, will the people selling these phones be able to teach deaf people to use this technology? If not, where will the training for health and social care staff come from? Has Google got any plans to be able to support the community with actually accessing and using this technology?
So this is a really good question, and it's a really tough one as well. The people who sell the phones, say the BTs, the EEs, the different organizations, the Vodafones, they have access to the training information that we provide, and we've offered to partner with them. But it's sometimes more difficult than we would want it to be to get everybody trained in terms of these technologies. So we've also started to partner with RNID and here with Deafblind UK. So my hope is that we can partner with the charities and the nonprofits to teach the community, because it's difficult to make another business do this. We can't make them do anything. It has to be to their benefit. So I'm here now to try to share this information. We're partnering with RNID to share this information, and hopefully together we can come up with a way of having this possible. But when it comes to how to use the information, we're making videos, we have help documentation, we're trying to make it as easy to discover and learn how to use as we can. And of course, we can always do it better.
Thank you. Phil says, what future innovation are you most excited for?
The intersection, and this is Christopher the human. This isn't necessarily Christopher the Googler, because this is a couple of years away. But I'm really excited for this intersection of augmented reality, like the glasses, and artificial intelligence. And there's two aspects of it that I'm really excited about. One is using computer vision on a set of glasses, knowing where you are in the world, allowing us to provide a real-time description of the world around you. So as you're walking down the street, we can tell you what stores you're walking by. We can tell you when someone's ahead of you. We can tell you when the traffic light is going green. So you don't have to memorize exactly what you need to do. You don't have to trust someone to tell you the right information. You have the context yourself. That this isn't going to happen this year. This isn't going to happen next year, but maybe 10 years from now, this is where the technology can get to. So that the innovation is head-worn glasses, so your hands are free, and then the integration of sort of situation where you are in the world with AI, artificial intelligence, to tell you where you are and tell you what you need to know when you need to know it.
Sounds amazing. No wonder you are excited for that one. We did have a question around glasses. What product are those glasses, please? And are they available to purchase in the UK now?
So this was not a product, this is a prototype. And I'm sorry if what that means isn't known. When you're developing a product, you make a lot of versions of it that you're testing to see if it works. And this was one of these sort of test versions. The problem is the difference between having a test version and having something someone would want to wear and buy is, in this case, going to be many years, because it'll take a long time to have a pair of glasses that look like something you would want to wear, but have it have enough battery life to last all day, to have it make sure it doesn't give you cancer because of the computers on your head and the radiation. And there's so many things that you have to do this thoughtfully and in a healthy, conservative way. This is just a test device. But what's nice to know is we've taken this platform, we've opened it up to other manufacturers, and our friends at Samsung have already said that they want to use this. So I'm optimistic that they will be coming up with something before Google will, because they have such a great track record in building these kinds of devices.
Thank you. Somebody else has asked, how can a deafblind person who can't read subtitles, is there another access method?
I'm not completely sure I understand. Is it automatic tactile? Is it? I don't know enough of the question to know what a good answer would be. Okay. But this is exactly why I'm here, so I can try to understand what the problems are, so we can try to come up with the solutions together. So this is something I would reach out to the folks of the charity. Let's talk about this. What are some options that we can start looking at to really provide true access?
Fab, thank you. Well, we still have 10 minutes, so if anybody wants to come in and further on that question, then please do. Jane has said that this is amazing. Love this presentation. Somebody else, I found this awe-inspiring. Thank you for the presentation. Somebody else has said, if I have to wait 2 years, I understand that. What about Google products being on Samsung and iPhones?
So
will that work? Sorry.
So all of the technologies I shared with you should be available on Samsung devices today or soon, especially in English. Other languages may be coming later. So live caption for calls should be there, if not now, soon. Live transcribe is available on any Android phone. So all of these things are there now for Android. On iOS, it's a little more difficult because Apple controls their ecosystem quite carefully, and we don't always have access to the same kind of APIs, computer code access that we would normally want to have a good experience. And frankly, they are excellent at what they do. And I would love to see them create something like this and give us some competition. And then we get to have that fun to see whatever you can do, I can do better. And then we're better, and then they're better. And then we all benefit because that competition really creates advancement.
Thank you. Stefan has said, can we have a copy of the YouTube videos? Absolutely amazing presentation of the technology. Thank you.
They're available today. They're not hidden. They're public on our YouTube video. We actually have a YouTube playlist of all of the videos that we have, which could teach you a lot about the features that we have in all of our products, whether it's Gmail or Workspace or Android or Chrome.
Thank you.
If I may, there's one feature that I'd like to share with the community now, if they weren't aware. So the web browser, Google Chrome, which we're all using, I think, right now, or most of us are, actually has a really cool live caption feature built in. You go into the accessibility settings, you turn on live caption, and you can get captions for any audio source on the call. But what's really interesting for me, it also will feed into a Braille display. So this means you don't have to wait for someone to create a transcript. You don't have to ask for a transcript. We'll create a transcript for you. And again, this is AI, so it won't be perfect. But again, something that's imperfect is certainly better than nothing that comes out that's perfect. So please try it out.
Thank you. Is there another option for a deafblind person using a computer who can't access a screen reader?
Well, there's Braille display is probably the best, easiest answer that I know that works. There are many other ways, I'm sure, but I don't know them well enough to give you an answer with confidence. And here's another opportunity for us to work together so I can learn these things and bring them back into Google so we can focus on them.
Thank you. Deirdre says, when will Live Translate be on iPhone as an app and be improved on Google Chrome?
Live Transcribe is on Android, and Apple is able to make their own version if this was something that they wanted to do. So I can't speak to their priorities, but I know this being Google, we want to make sure that our platforms are as good and get better over time. We're continuing to invest and continuing to develop these technologies, so they will be getting better and better over time.
Thank you. There are so many questions. Does Google work with other charities too? How can others engage with the mighty Google?
So my job here is to build up relationships with as many charities and NGOs as I can across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. But it's just me, so we can't do everything. But I'm partnering with you. I'm partnering with RNID. I'm partnering with RNIB. We're having conversations with Scope and Leonard Cheshire. So we're trying to get engaged in thoughtful ways where we think we have something to offer. But we also are engaged deeply with similar kind of organizations across the US as well.
Fab, thank you. Is there a way that deafblind people can contact Google?
There is actually free technical support for any Google product. So am I allowed to type something into the chat?
Yes.
I'm okay. I'm going to put a link here.
I'm sure there is a way that we can get that out to people. I think the chat might just be between you and me, Christopher, but we can get that out.
Okay, so I'll say it out loud. It's g.co/disability support, all one word. g.co/disability support. We provide free technical support for anyone with disabilities. The timeframes are more US-centric, but very early US-centric, so we still have a significant portion of our day here in England with access.
Thank you. Mohammed has asked, does Google have collaboration with other technology companies such as Microsoft? Apple to share the technology between yourself so that new technology can be available to the disabled community sooner?
Yes, in fact, I guess it was about 2 years ago, we had announced a collaboration with Microsoft, Apple, Meta, Amazon, and of course ourselves about what we call the Accessible Speech Project, where we all shared our voice data for people with non-typical speech patterns. And what this does, it allows people to create voice agents, ways to understand people with non-typical speech patterns. So say whether it's a deaf accent or they have MND or whatever the reason, their speech is not understood by, say, the Google Assistant or Siri or Alexa. Creating models based off this data allows everyone's voice agents, everyone's assistants to work better. And so we did this recently. On the other hand, we can't do too much together because we're still trying to compete for the same users. And we want to make sure people go onto Android because we think it's the best, but yet Apple thinks theirs is the best, and Microsoft Windows and Office is excellent. So we're all trying to have that competition to push the technology forward, because that's how you get really good tech, is by FOMO. Oh, I can do that better. Oh, no, I can do that better. And let us fight it out in the marketplace.
Thank you. Lee says, where is the best place to keep up to date with Google's latest accessibility innovations?
So we have a quarterly newsletter, and what I'll do, I don't have the URL off the top of my head, but I'll share it with by the end of the day with the folks who started the conference, with the leadership here, and then hopefully that could be distributed with everyone. But this is the quarterly newsletter, and so we won't spam you. And we'll just give you a list of all of the different things that we've done over the past quarter, whether it's about policy, whether it's about workspace, whether it's about Android, all the things that we're interested that we think would be helpful.
Fab, thank you. So we've got Jenny says, live transcribe in a busy environment such as a pub or shop doesn't work well as it picks up over conversations, very much like the old analog hearing aids. Mm-hmm. Will you be able to use the technology like that of digital aids whereby it will drown out conversations?
So the two ways the easiest way to do this now is with a directional mic. You can get a small directional mic and connect to it via Bluetooth, or you can plug it in and you point the phone to someone and it'll pick up that person. That's the easiest way to solve this problem today. The problem is real. The challenge is, how do you find out the right voice that you want to use? Mm-hmm. So if you're using a digital aid or have used one, this is probably the best solution, using things like Live Transcribe. If you don't need one, though, if you need just a little bit of help, we have a tool called Sound Amplifier. And in Sound Amplifier, you could use headphones like the ones I'm wearing, and you can actually use the camera to identify a person, and we can use that to tell us where to pay attention to. So depending upon your need, this might also be an interesting possibility as well.
Thank you. It is 2:00. I think we could go on all afternoon, Christopher. There are still lots of questions, but sadly, we have to bring this session to an end. But yeah, that is all we've got time for. I think, Christopher, you have agreed to provide some written answers that we'll be able to send out via email for any questions that we've not been able to answer.
Yeah.
Yep, fab. So that leaves me to say thank you, Christopher, for such an interesting talk. That is the end of this session. Next up, we have Megan Taylor talking about how her assistance dogs help her to connect, and Dr. Liz Hodges, who will be talking all things educational. Just go back to the agenda, refresh your browser, and select the session that you would like to join next. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.